Carved from Stone, 12 Powerful Hacks for Taking Command of Your Life, by Justin Robert Zelmer. Chapter 1. Rewiring Your Mind. Your subconscious doesn't respond to hype, it responds to repetition. Most people don't realize they're training their mind every night, just doing it poorly. You go to sleep thinking about bills, work, people who pissed you off, or something random you scrolled past. Then you wonder why you wake up heavy, anxious, or already defeated. The moments right before you fall asleep are the most powerful mental territory you own. In that in-between state, where you're not fully awake and not yet unconscious, your subconscious is wide open. And it doesn't judge what you give it. It absorbs. It accepts. This isn't about affirmations. That word feels hollow because people use it without conviction. What you're doing here is feeding your subconscious clear, intentional messages, not wishful thinking, identity reinforcement. You're not hyping yourself up. You're defining who you are when it matters most. The approach is simple. Choose a single sharp phrase that reflects the kind of self you're building, something that feels like a personal code. Then repeat it to yourself in a calm, focused way as you drift into sleep. Let it sink in. Let it imprint. Don't change it every night. Keep it the same for weeks. Drill it like muscle memory. Over time, this becomes a mental scar, something that holds even under pressure. You won't feel a lightning bolt of change after one night, but give it time, and you'll notice your instincts shift. You'll act with more clarity under stress. You'll catch yourself defaulting to strength, not doubt. That's your subconscious doing its job, finally working for you instead of against you. Train it on purpose. Muhammad Ali, the greatest, was built in the dark. Muhammad Ali didn't become the greatest in the ring. He became it in his mind long before the world saw it. When Ali was still Cassius Clay, he wasn't undefeated, untouchable, or even particularly respected. But he said he was, constantly, publicly, privately, before the media, before the crowd, and, most importantly, before bed. He'd lie there, repeating phrases like, "I am the greatest. I'm so fast I turn off the light, and I'm in bed before the room goes dark. If my mind can conceive it, and my heart can believe it, then I can achieve it." People thought it was arrogance. It wasn't. It was reinforcement. Ali was training his subconscious with the same discipline he brought to his footwork and jab. He wasn't waiting for results to believe. He was programming belief to deliver results. He repeated these lines until they became reflex. Under pressure, his self-talk wasn't shaky. It was rehearsed. Where other fighters hesitated, Ali's mind had already decided, "I win." He'd already fought and won the match in his head 100 times before ever stepping into the ring. Years later, he said something that perfectly sums up this method. It's the repetition of affirmations that leads to belief, and once that belief becomes a deep conviction, things begin to happen. You don't have to love the word affirmation. Ali probably didn't either. What mattered is that he planted an identity in his subconscious and watered it daily with repetition, conviction, and action. He became the greatest long before the world agreed. That's how it works. First, you build the belief. Then, you let time and effort catch up. Chapter 2. The Power of Breath. At Thermopylae, legend says 300 Spartans stood against thousands, but their defiance wasn't born overnight. It was bred in discomfort. Spartan boys from the age of 7 were dropped into military camps. Hunger was routine, cold was expected, pain wasn't avoided. It was orchestrated, one part of their training, ritual breath constriction. They would be submerged, held, or sprinted to the edge of collapse, taught to control their breath and their fear at once. The lesson? Stress was no surprise. By the time real danger came, they had already felt it. And more importantly, they'd learned to control themselves inside it. You can't wait until life melts down to learn how to stay composed. You have to practice losing control and learn how to steer while it's happening. That's what stress emulation breath work does. You take control of your breath just long enough to push your body into a rising panic. Your heart races, your head buzzes, you feel pressure in your chest. It's a quiet, chemical fight or flight. But here's the difference. You stay there. You don't run. You don't escape. You ride it. You regulate it. You train yourself to feel the storm without flinching. This isn't relaxation breathing. It's rehearsal for chaos. When done right, it feels like your body is about to bolt, and your mind learns to stay rooted anyway. That's the skill you're building, resilience before the crisis. How it's done. You breathe fast and deep, 30 to 40 power breaths through the nose and mouth. On the final breath, exhale completely and hold for as long as possible. When you finally need to inhale again, take one deep breath and hold it for 10 to 15 seconds. Repeat for 3 to 4 rounds. At some point, it will feel like a wave hits, tingling, lightheadedness, pressure. That's the edge. Don't panic. Observe it. That feeling? It's training. You're teaching your body how to survive stress without folding. Over time, your threshold expands. Not just in breath work, in arguments, in workouts, in life. You stop bracing when things get intense. You've been there before. You've trained for it. The Iceman who refused to break. Wim Hof was not born in the cold, but he became its master. In 1995, his world collapsed. His wife, suffering from mental illness, took her own life. He was left alone with 4 children and a broken heart. Most men would have drowned in grief. Hof walked into a frozen river. He didn't do it to die. He did it to feel something real. The cold shocked his system, but instead of fleeing, he focused. He breathed deeply, slowly, deliberately, and for the first time since her death, his mind went quiet. That moment became a ritual. Every day he entered the cold, ice baths, glaciers, frozen lakes. Each time he pushed further, breathing through panic, smiling through pain. Over time, he noticed something strange. He was not getting sick. He was not breaking down. He was getting stronger. The world mocked him, so he broke records. He ran a half marathon above the Arctic Circle, barefoot, wearing nothing but shorts. He submerged himself in ice for nearly 2 hours, without his core temperature dropping. He climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in just boots and shorts in under 48 hours. In a lab, he voluntarily exposed himself to an endotoxin, a substance that should have made him violently ill. Instead, he used breath work to suppress the immune response. Doctors called it impossible. Wim called it training. He said the cold was his teacher, but the breath was his weapon. By learning to stay calm inside a manufactured storm, he discovered how to control his nervous system, his immune response, even his mind. Panic became optional. Pain became a signal, not a command. Today, thousands use his methods to do what medicine said they couldn't. Control anxiety, fight inflammation, endure extreme conditions, rebuild focus and grit. Wim Hof didn't escape suffering. He dove straight into it on his own terms. The parasympathetic sigh. How to kill panic in 10 seconds. You don't need a therapist, a cold plunge, or a 5-day retreat to control anxiety. Sometimes All you need is one forgotten reflex that's already built into your biology. It's called the physiological sigh, a simple, primal breathing pattern that your body uses to reset itself when things get out of control. Here's how it works. Inhale once through your nose. Just before the exhale, take a second, shorter inhale through your nose to top off the lungs. Then slowly exhale all the way out through your mouth. That's it. This two-stage inhale expands the lungs fully and reopens collapsed alveoli, those tiny sacs where oxygen exchange happens. The long exhale activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the part responsible for calm, recovery, and control. It slows your heart rate. It clears mental static. It's your body's natural off switch for stress. You've done this before without realizing it. After a long cry, a panic attack, or a deep emotional release, your body gives a double inhale followed by a slow exhale. That's not random. It's evolution hardwired into your system to help you regulate. When you do it on purpose, you hijack that circuit before it spirals. Do 2 or 3 rounds of this sigh when you feel the edge creeping in. Tight chest, shallow breath, rising heart rate. You'll notice the shift. The mind slows down. The muscles loosen. You regain your ability to choose instead of react. It doesn't fix your problems, but it lets you face them unshaken. Box breathing, the warrior's calm. If the parasympathetic sigh is your emergency brake, box breathing is your steering wheel. It keeps you level in the middle of the storm. Not panicked, not sedated, just focused. Box breathing is simple. It's used by Navy SEALs, first responders, elite athletes, not because it's flashy, but because it works. It balances oxygen and CO2, regulates your nervous system, and keeps your mind locked in. Here's the structure. Inhale through the nose for 4 seconds. Hold your breath for 4 seconds. Exhale slowly through the mouth for 4 seconds. Hold your lungs empty for 4 seconds. Repeat for 4 to 10 cycles. This pattern sends a clear message to your nervous system. We are not in danger. It downshifts your physiology without making you sluggish. The hold at the bottom, the empty lungs, is where the edge lives. That moment trains control under tension. Use this before a stressful call, during a cold plunge, in the car before an interview. Right before stepping on stage or into a fight, it builds rhythm inside chaos, and rhythm is control. Over time, box breathing becomes more than a technique. It becomes a trigger. Your brain recognizes it. Your body listens, and you remain exactly what the moment needs: calm, alert, dangerous. The SEAL who breathed through the kill zone. The convoy was ambushed outside Ramadi. Bullets tore into the armored columns. Chaos erupted. Screaming civilians, collapsing buildings, gunfire from rooftops. Navy SEAL Mark Devine was on overwatch, pinned down with his team on a rooftop. In the first seconds of the firefight, adrenaline surged. Tunnel vision kicked in. His hands started to shake. He was moments from a physiological freeze, the body's panic reflex. But this wasn't his first ambush. He had trained for this, not with more firepower, but with breath. 4 seconds in, 4 seconds hold, 4 seconds out, 4 seconds hold. As bullets cracked past his head, he began the cycle. Again, again, again. In less than a minute, his tunnel vision widened. His heart slowed. His focus returned. The chaos was still there, but he wasn't part of it. He was outside it, observing, calculating, executing. He started calling shots, cover fire, tactical movement. His voice steady, his hands were calm. They cleared the rooftop, rejoined the convoy. No one dead, no one broken. Later in training, he told his men, "The breath is the first weapon. Use it or get used by everything else. Mark Devine would later teach this same method to thousands, civilians, athletes, entrepreneurs. He didn't sell it as meditation. He called it what it was, a control system for the battlefield, internal and external. Chapter 3. Framing is everything. Your brain is a meaning-making machine. It doesn't just record what happens, it interprets it, assigns value to it, and filters it through whatever lens you've trained it to use. That lens is called a frame, and that frame, more than the pain itself, often determines whether you break or endure. What framing actually is. Framing isn't lying to yourself. It's not delusion. It's how you choose to define a situation internally before it defines you. Pain isn't just pain. It's either damage or it's adaptation. Fear isn't just fear. It's either a stop sign or a trigger for awareness. Failure isn't just failure. It's either proof you're inadequate or feedback for recalibration. Framing is the split-second story you wrap around an experience. That story either gives you power or strips it from you. The cost of no frame. If you don't actively frame a situation, your nervous system will do it for you. It'll default to threat. That means faster heart rate, shallow breath, narrowed vision, short-term thinking, and often paralysis. You stop seeing the bigger picture. You stop seeing options. You start reacting to survival instincts instead of strategy. That's why good framing isn't motivational fluff. It's neurological discipline. It creates space between the stimulus and your reaction. And in that space, you get to choose who you are. Examples in practice. A 2-hour delay in traffic, you could see it as wasted time. Or you could use it to practice stillness, patience, or cold detachment. Same event, different outcome. A crushing workout. You could frame it as punishment or as proof that your body is adapting, hardening, recalibrating for more. Criticism. You could treat it as an attack on your ego or as a mirror, ugly maybe, but accurate and exactly what you needed. Framing doesn't make the pain go away. It just keeps it from taking control. Build the habit. Framing is most powerful when it's done early, before the chaos peaks. You decide what the situation means before the panic starts writing the script. A simple way to start. Ask, what else could this mean? Then ask, what's the most useful way to see this? Not the most positive, not the most dramatic, just the most useful. That's the frame you use. Framing won't save you from every failure, but it will keep you from folding under pressure. You'll still feel it, but you'll move through it deliberately, because the story you're operating under makes sense to the part of you built for more, and that's when pain becomes useful. People are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of them. Epictetus. This isn't philosophy for comfort. It's strategy. Epictetus was born into slavery. He had every reason to frame life as unjust, brutal, meaningless. Instead, he trained his mind to separate what happens from what it means. Pain, to him, was information. Every hardship was material for building strength. He didn't preach avoidance. He taught control, starting with perception. That's what framing is, perception under discipline. Chapter 4. Choose your suffering. You don't need to suffer constantly. You just need to suffer on purpose. Intermittent suffering is the practice of choosing small doses of controlled discomfort to sharpen the mind and harden the body. It's cold runs, long rucks, fasted training, freezing showers, wind in your face when everyone else is inside. These are not hobbies, they're reminders. Reminders that your comfort is a cage, that your pain threshold is negotiable, that the animal inside you still knows how to move through fire. Why it works. Your brain is wired for efficiency, not growth. Left unchecked, it'll default to the easiest option, the shortest route, the softest bed. Over time, that comfort becomes weakness, not just physical, but mental, emotional, even moral. Intermittent suffering interrupts that. It forces your nervous system to adapt, not retreat. It triggers stress on your terms, controlled, time-boxed, brutal if necessary. And each time you step into it willingly, you reinforce a deeper identity. I can handle more than I think. Not because it's easy, but because you've proved it. Cold, tired, hungry, alone. Examples. Cold exposure, not for Instagram, but for clarity. Get in the water, feel it hit. Breathe anyway, that's control. Running in the cold or rain, when your environment tells you to quit. Go anyway. Learn to override the suggestion. Rucking with weight. No music, no phone. Just feet on the ground and time to confront the thoughts you've been dodging. Fasting, not for weight loss, but to remind yourself that hunger isn't an emergency. High-rep grind sets. When your lungs are on fire and the clock says you can stop, don't. Finish it, not because it's efficient, but because it's hard. You don't need to do this daily. You just need to do it consistently, enough to keep the edge sharp. This is not masochism. This isn't about glorifying pain. This is about voluntary hardship with purpose. The difference is intent. Masochism is suffering without reason. Discipline is suffering for alignment, to stay congruent with who you claim to be. When you practice intermittent suffering, you build a reference point. So when real life hits, loss, injury, betrayal, chaos, you don't fold. You've been here. You've trained for this. And that training leaves a mark. The man who chose the suffering first. David Goggins should have disappeared. His childhood was an instruction manual for trauma, beatings, racism, poverty, and fear. His father was violent and controlling. His home was a war zone. And by the time he was a teenager, Goggins was barely hanging on. He was not a warrior. He was a ghost in his own body. Then, one night, he watched a documentary on Navy SEALs. It didn't make him feel inspired. It made him feel ashamed. He saw men doing what he knew deep down he was capable of if he burned everything weak inside him to the ground. So he made a decision. Suffer now or suffer forever. Goggins had 90 days to lose 100 pounds or he wouldn't qualify for SEAL training. So he went to war with himself. He cut everything, no junk food, no TV, no excuses. He started running on knees that cracked under his weight. He rode a stationary bike until he hallucinated. He studied with learning disabilities, retaught himself math, and passed the ASVAB. He made the weight. He joined the Navy. And then he failed, twice. He cracked during Hell Week, broke down physically, got rolled back. But the third time, with fractured legs taped up, he finished. Most men would have stopped there. SEAL trident earned, demons conquered. Goggins kept suffering on purpose. He completed Army Ranger School, then became an Air Force tactical air controller. He ran 100 miles with no ultramarathon training, urinating blood halfway through. He broke the world record for most pull-ups in 24 hours after failing multiple times. He ran the Badwater 135 in Death Valley. Then he ran it again and again. He didn't compete to win. He competed to go deeper into the pain, because he understood something most people never learn. When you're at your limit, you're only at 40%. That was his rule, and it wasn't a motivational line. It was his lifestyle. Why it matters. Goggins didn't become legendary because he was fearless. He became legendary because he made a contract with suffering and kept it. He turned voluntary hardship into identity. He scheduled the suffering before life could ambush him with it. While others trained to be comfortable, he trained for chaos. He weaponized his pain. He gave it a job, and that job was to carve something harder, sharper, and more honest out of the wreckage of who he used to be. He didn't want a better life. He wanted to become unbreakable. Suffering Saturdays, 1 day a week, no excuses, no comfort. You don't need to suffer every day to get hard. You just need one day that reminds your body and your mind who's in charge. Suffering Saturdays is your ritual. It's the anchor that forces adaptation, a weekly check-in with your limits, a reset button for discipline, and a war drum you beat to remind yourself you are not civilized yet. Rules: no music, no distractions, no ego. Do it early, before your mind has time to talk you out of it. No matter your level, the objective is the same. Finish. The body breaks last. The mind quits first. Don't let it. The baseline protocol. 1. Weighted march, 45 minutes. Ruck with 20 to 35 pound pack. No breaks, no phone. Walk like you're going somewhere that matters. 2. Cold exposure, 3 minutes. Ice bath, cold plunge, or freezing shower. Get in, don't tense, breathe through it. 3rd fasted grinder, 3 rounds. No food beforehand, just black coffee or water. 25 push-ups, 20 squats, 15 lunges per leg, 10 burpees, 1-minute wall, sit, 1-minute plank. Rest 1 to 2 minutes between rounds. No extra fluff, grind. 4 30-minute walk and think. Put on a hoodie and walk. No music, just think. Let the clarity hit you. Let the silence hurt a little. Why it works. This isn't punishment. It's pattern interruption. 1 day to stop negotiating with weakness. It resets your baseline, clears out the mental clutter, reteaches your body how to suffer on purpose, and builds a weekly rhythm of discomfort that sharpens everything else you do. You can escalate it over time. Longer rucks, weighted vests, stricter fasts. But the core idea stays the same. 1 day, 0 softness. Chapter 5. Start small and build. Discipline doesn't start with a war cry. It starts with one simple act you refuse to negotiate. A cold shower, a 10-minute walk, making your bed with intention, drinking a full glass of water the moment you wake up. It sounds small, almost too small, but that's the point. Most people fail to become disciplined because they aim too high, too fast. They romanticize radical change, not realizing the mind resists anything that feels like a threat to its comfort. So when they crash after a few days of all or nothing effort, they call themselves weak and quit. The problem wasn't weakness, it was scale. Why small habits work. Small habits bypass your brain's resistance. They slip under the radar. And once established, they build identity momentum. You don't need to feel motivated. You just need to show up, repeatedly, on a loop, until your mind says, this is just what we do now. One small habit done daily, without negotiation, is more powerful than a dozen good intentions, because it's not about what the habit is, it's about who you're becoming by doing it. The no negotiation rule. Pick a habit, make it simple, and then apply this rule. This gets done no matter how I feel. That's it. You don't skip it because you're tired. You don't skip it because it's the weekend. You don't upgrade it, modify it, or complicate it. You just do it. When your emotions say, not today, that's the signal to go harder, because that moment, that resistance, is where real discipline is built. Examples that actually work. 10 push-ups every morning, 1-minute cold rinse after every shower, flossing after brushing teeth, making your bed like it's an inspection, reading 10 pages of a book you've been neglecting. leaving your phone at home for a long walk. None of these will change your life in a week, but they will teach you how to obey your own command. And when that habit is solid, stack another one, and another. Soon, you're not someone who tries to be disciplined, you're someone who just is. Discipline is not born in moments of hype or inspiration. It's born in boring reps, in micro-decisions, in the non-negotiable ritual of showing up, even when no one's watching. Especially then, because that's when the stone is carved. The bed-making admiral. In his best-selling book, Make Your Bed, Admiral William H. McRaven distilled a lifetime of lessons from Navy SEAL training into one simple, actionable concept. Make your bed every morning. McRaven, a retired four-star admiral, became known for his leadership both on the battlefield and as a teacher. But the lesson that stood out the most wasn't some grand leadership strategy or complex theory. It was this. Starting your day with something as small as making your bed instills discipline, order, and a sense of pride, no matter what chaos follows. McRaven argues that making your bed first thing every morning is an act of personal responsibility. It's a small victory to begin the day with, one you can always return to when everything else goes wrong. In the chaos of combat, leadership crises, or life itself, that made bed becomes a reminder that some things are within your control. As McRaven put it, if you can't do the little things right, you'll never do the big things right. The point is simple. The smallest of habits, when practiced consistently, can set the tone for the rest of your day and your life. The discipline you practice in making your bed translates to the discipline you'll have to handle greater challenges. Chapter 6. Visualize like it's yours. Most people daydream to escape. You're going to visualize to build. This isn't fantasy. It's target acquisition. Your mind doesn't know the difference between a memory and a well-crafted image. If you feed it the right visuals, vivid, repeated, emotional, it starts working backward to make that image real. The more detail, the more conviction, the deeper it roots in your subconscious. That's not fluff. That's neurology. See it, then bleed for it. Picture this. You step out of a matte black G-Wagon, suited up, chin high, no guilt about the engine rumble or the eyes on you, because you earned this. Years of reps, of sweat, of trading sleep for progress. You're not showing off, you're arriving. Or maybe it's winter, you're alone, miles deep in your own land. 3,000 acres of silence and sovereignty. You stalk an elk at sunrise. One clean shot drops it. It's not a trophy. It's food. It's primal. You dress it with precision, load the meat, and you know your freezer's full for the season. You don't owe a soul a single bite. That image? That's not a dream. That's a preview. The method, how to visualize your way to success. Sit in stillness. Pick the scene. Make it high definition. Attach emotion. Revisit it daily. Why it works. Your brain filters reality through a system called the Reticular Activating System, ERAS. Once you start feeding it consistent images of the life you want, it starts connecting dots, opportunities, decisions, habits that align with that picture. You don't just see the goal. You become the kind of person who makes that life inevitable. Visualization builds belief, and belief builds discipline, and discipline builds the life. Most people think they need to get motivated before they do the work. You're going to see the end state first and then make your daily life catch up to it. Because once the image is real in your mind, you'll move through suffering like it's just a toll you pay on the road to where you already live. Use visualization to regain focus. Visualization isn't just for planning your future. It's a way to pull yourself out of distraction and back into work. When you're tired, unfocused, or wasting time, close your eyes and bring the vision back. The real one. The reason you started. See the kind of life you're trying to build. Not the highlight reel, the actual experience, the land, the quiet, the control over your time, the physical capability, the sense of peace that comes from knowing you've handled your responsibilities. Now ask yourself, does what I'm doing right now get me closer to that? If the answer is no, get back to work. Not out of guilt, but out of clarity. That future life isn't going to show up on its own. You have to build it, piece by piece. And that means doing the next rep, finishing the task, showing up even when it's uncomfortable. When you visualize the life you're aiming for, you're reminding yourself what the work is for. You're not trying to hype yourself up. You're simply choosing to stay aligned with what matters. That's it. Practical drill. Lock in your visual. Pick one real image of your future, not 10. 1. Make it sharp, tangible. Example, you're walking your own land at sunrise. No noise, no neighbors, just boots on dirt and the sound of your own breath. Write it down in 1 or 2 sentences. Nothing poetic, just a clear line that hits. Tape it to your desk. Set it as your phone lock screen. Burn it into your brain. When you start to drift, read it out loud if you can. Read it once and then act. You don't pause to reflect. You don't scroll. You go straight into the next thing that earns that vision. Repeat until it's automatic. The goal is to condition your brain to link distraction with discipline, not shame. Just a trigger response loop. Drift, visual, visual, action. You're not trying to feel better. You're trying to get back on task. This is how you stay locked in, without needing someone to yell at you or some motivational video to carry you, because the life you're after doesn't care how you feel, only whether or not you show up. Chapter 7. Dragnets and Projections. As soon as you start to change, even a little, some people will take it personally. Not because you've done anything to them, but because your effort shines a light on their inaction. Most people live in avoidance. They put off hard decisions, hard conversations, hard work. They numb themselves with distraction and comfort. And when they see someone, even a friend, break out of that pattern, it stings. They don't say, "I admire what you're doing." They say, "You've changed. Don't be so obsessed. Why are you trying so hard? You think you're better than everyone now? Just relax, man. You're too intense." These aren't criticisms, they're projections. The dragnet. A person who doesn't have the courage to do the work will often try to pull others back down with them, not out of malice, but out of discomfort. Your discipline exposes their avoidance. Your ambition reminds them of their excuses. They cast a dragnet, a wide, quiet pull meant to snare anyone getting too far ahead. Let's skip the gym. Just one drink. You're taking this too seriously. Come on, you're not that guy. They need you to stay close enough that they don't have to look at themselves too hard. That way, they don't have to change, and if they can't stop you with guilt, they'll try to discredit you. He's just lucky. It's easy for him. He's compensating. He's not even happy. Anything to make your progress look like a problem. Recognizing projection. Here are a few common examples you will hear. You're getting too into it. Are you on something? It's just vanity. Eat clean, skip junk. You're no fun anymore. One cheat meal won't kill you. You think you're better than us? Read, learn, build something. You're trying too hard. That stuff doesn't work. Just enjoy life, man. Leave toxic people? So you're perfect now? You're acting different. You forgot where you came from. This isn't critique, it's defense. They're not trying to stop you, they're trying to protect their comfort. How to handle it? Don't argue. Arguing only confirms their fear that your growth matters more than their approval. Don't slow down. Moving slower won't make them feel better. It'll just make you resent them and yourself. Let your results speak. Most people talk. Let them. You're doing. Stay kind, but stay the course. You don't owe anyone stagnation just to make them feel okay with theirs. Some people will quietly cheer you on. Some will quietly hope you fail. Keep going anyway. Let them talk. Let them project. You've got work to do. Marcus Aurelius. As emperor, Marcus faced constant attacks, not from enemies but from the Senate, nobles, and even members of his own family. They called him weak, too bookish, too thoughtful. He journaled through it all, writing meditations, not to impress others, but to keep himself grounded. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Even as the most powerful man in the world, he knew, people will always try to pull you down. Your job is to stay rooted in reason and self-command. Key takeaway: whether you're a Stoic slave or a Roman emperor, projection is part of the path. People drag down what they don't understand. They mock what they're afraid to become. And they resist what threatens their comfort. Stay steady. The further you go, the louder the pull will get. Your job isn't to explain yourself. It's to keep building. Chapter 8. Social coercion. Projection is about insecurity. Someone sees your discipline and feels called out, so they try to pull you down. Social coercion is different. It's about control. It's when people don't just disagree with your choices, they need you to change them, not for your safety, not for the good of the group, but so they can feel in control again. The mask of approval. During COVID, one thing became clear. People fear standing out more than they fear being wrong. Some wore a mask because they believed in it. Fine. But others wore it because they were afraid of what would happen if they didn't. More importantly, some didn't feel safe unless everyone else did too. Even if you were 6 feet away, even if you were outdoors. It wasn't about logic anymore. It was about control. If I have to do this, so do you. Don't make me feel weird for following the rules. Just do it. Stop making it a thing. That's not science. That's coercion. And it wasn't limited to masks. That same energy shows up everywhere. You don't drink? You're judging everyone. You don't post your opinion? You're part of the problem. You train hard. You're toxic. You stay quiet. You're complicit. You speak up. You're extreme. This is social conformity by force. It's an invisible leash meant to keep everyone moving in the same direction, even if it's off a cliff. Why it happens. People crave predictability. They want to look around and see people who act like them, speak like them, think like them. It makes them feel safe. So when someone moves against the grain, they don't ask, "Is he right?" They ask, "Why won't he just fall in line?" That refusal makes you a threat, not because of violence or danger, but because you expose their obedience. You remind them they had a choice and they gave it up. And nothing makes a follower more uncomfortable than someone who won't follow. How to stay grounded. Don't make noise to make noise. Resistance for the sake of rebellion is just a tantrum. Choose your lines with reason, not emotion. Know your values before the pressure hits. You won't be able to think clearly when the crowd is yelling. Decide now. Hold your position calmly. The louder they get, the quieter you stay. That silence is power. They can't handle it. Accept the cost. Refusing to comply comes with social friction. You'll be called difficult, cold, dangerous. So what? At least it's you making the call, not someone else. In the end, the goal isn't to be a contrarian. It's to stay aligned, under pressure, under scrutiny, under fire. The herd always moves in waves, and they will always try to sweep you with them. Stand firm, not out of ego, not out of anger, but because your moral compass is not for sale. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, the man who would not bow. In Stalin's Soviet Union, truth was not just discouraged, it was criminal. Questioning the regime, even in private letters, could earn you a death sentence or a one-way ticket to the Gulag. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, a decorated artillery officer during World War II, found this out firsthand. In 1945, he was arrested by Soviet authorities. His crime? He wrote a private letter to a friend where he criticized Stalin's leadership. For that, he was sentenced to 8 years in a forced labor camp, the beginning of what would become his greatest crucible. Inside the machinery of obedience. Solzhenitsyn's Gulag experience was hell, not just physically, though the hunger, cold, and exhaustion were near constant. The real war was psychological. Every prisoner was expected to break, to confess, to lie, to denounce someone else, to go along with the fiction that the regime was just, that the punishment was deserved. If you resisted, the pressure didn't lessen. It intensified. Most people bent. Some bent quietly. Others began to believe the lies, just to survive. But not Solzhenitsyn. Choosing integrity over safety. While imprisoned, he began to observe a quiet truth. The line dividing good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being. He realized that the only way to remain free, even inside a prison, was to refuse to become part of the lie. He wouldn't inform, he wouldn't flatter the guards, he wouldn't pretend. He simply stood, quiet, honest, unbroken. Later, after his release, he began writing the Gulag Archipelago in secret, a multi-volume exposé of the Soviet prison system based on his and others' first-hand experiences. He smuggled chapters out of the country, knowing that publishing it could cost him his life. "Live not by lies," he wrote. "Let your credo be this. Let the lie come into the world. Let it even triumph. But not through me." The fallout. In 1974, after years of surveillance and harassment, the Soviet Union stripped him of his citizenship and expelled him. He didn't grovel. He didn't ask for mercy. He simply said what was true and stood by it. Eventually, the world caught up. Solzhenitsyn won the Nobel Prize for Literature, and the Gulag Archipelago became one of the most important books of the 20th century, a work that shook totalitarianism to its roots. He didn't rage or riot. He didn't conform. He simply refused to betray his own conscience, no matter how much pressure came down. Lesson: social coercion thrives on fear. It wins when people convince themselves it's safer to nod along than to stand alone. But men like Solzhenitsyn prove something else. You can be surrounded by a lie and still not live inside it. You don't need to fight every battle, but there are lines worth holding, because once you trade your conscience for comfort, you don't own either. And how we burned in the camps later, thinking, what would things have been like if every security operative, when he went out at night to make an arrest, had been uncertain whether he would return alive? If during periods of mass arrests, people had not simply sat there in their lairs, paling with terror at every bang of the downstairs door and at every step on the staircase, but had understood they had nothing left to lose, and had boldly set up in the downstairs hall an ambush of half a dozen people with axes, hammers, pokers, or whatever else was at hand. The organs would very quickly have suffered a shortage of officers and transport, and, notwithstanding all of Stalin's thirst, the cursed machine would have ground to a halt. It's not a call to violence, it's a call to courage. He wasn't glorifying bloodshed. He was grieving the passivity that let evil metastasize. Chapter 9. Immediate action. Most people wait. They wait for motivation, for the right moment, for conditions to feel perfect. That wait turns into days, then months, then years. It doesn't feel like quitting. It feels like thinking it over. But delay is just a quieter form of surrender. Immediate action is how you cut that cycle off. It's not about charging blindly into everything. It's about refusing to let hesitation become your default. What it actually means, you don't make it complicated. Alarm goes off, get up. Task needs doing, do it. You think, I should reach out, go train, clean this up, move before the next thought shows up. No warm-up ritual, no perfect conditions. You make it mechanical. The action leads, your emotions catch up later. Why it works. The brain learns by repetition. Each time you hesitate, you reinforce hesitation. Each time you act, you make movement normal. The goal isn't speed for the sake of it. It's to prevent the mind from running its mouth. If you give it time, it'll talk you out of everything, so don't give it time. Practical application. You don't need some 5-step method. You just need to train one thing. Move when the moment hits. Phone rings, pick it up. Assignment drops, open the file. Workout planned, do the first rep. Momentum beats motivation. Start, then decide how you feel. Drill. Do the thing within 5 seconds of realizing it needs to be done. Not think about it, not plan it. Do it. Let that become your baseline, even if the action is small, especially if it is. No pep talks. This isn't about getting fired up. You're not trying to become a machine. You're just refusing to become soft through delay. Most people stay stuck because they're always almost ready. Be the one who doesn't wait. Immediate action is the closest a man gets to creation. A man has an idea. He ignores it. He tells himself, later. He wakes up the next day, and the idea is gone. Another man gets the same idea. He acts. No speech, no planning session, just the first move. By nightfall, something exists that didn't exist that morning. It's imperfect, sure, but it's real. A shelf, a prototype, a letter, a step forward. That man is closer to God than the one still thinking about it. In Scripture, God doesn't brainstorm. He speaks, and the world obeys. We can't speak things into existence, but we can act. And action, taken the moment a good idea hits, is the closest thing we have to divine power. Most men never build anything, not because they're incapable, but because they delay. They analyze, overthink, scroll, and retreat. They let their best thoughts rot in their heads. Every good thing you've ever seen, a house, a book, a company, a field cleared by hand, started the moment someone refused to wait. Immediate action is simple. It's not glamorous. It doesn't trend, but it creates. And creation is not a hobby. It's responsibility. It's the work of men who take their time on earth seriously. Chapter 10. Preparation is paramount. The morning doesn't begin when you wake up. It begins the night before. Quiet, unseen, with small decisions that decide whether you start the day with direction or with friction. Most people don't fail their mornings because they're lazy. They fail them because they wake up into chaos. No plan, no layout, just noise. So they stall, they scroll, They improvise, and by the time they're moving, the day's already slipped away. Preparation isn't complicated. You don't need some elaborate ritual. Just a few deliberate steps. Set out your clothes. Write down tomorrow's priorities. Stage your tools, your gym gear, your water, your boots. Decide what not to do in the morning. No phone, no email, no browsing. These actions take 5 minutes, maybe 10, but they remove dozens of points of resistance the next morning. That's the value, removing resistance before it appears. It's a discipline of respect. Preparation. The night before is a form of respect for your time, for your mission, and for your future self. You're not relying on morning motivation. You're building a launch pad. It's quiet work. It feels small, but that's where real structure lives, in what's done without being seen. Why it works. When you wake up and the first decision is already made, you move. That movement compounds, and that compound effect is what separates discipline from drift. Every strong routine starts with one moment, a man standing in a dark room, laying out his next move before he sleeps. Jocko Willink on preparation. Jocko Willink led SEALs in Ramadi during some of the heaviest fighting of the Iraq War. Chaos was constant, but when asked how he kept calm under pressure, his answer wasn't about courage. It was about preparation. You don't rise to the occasion, you fall to the level of your training. That line wasn't theory, it was earned. In his units, every mission was rehearsed. Gear was laid out with precision. Contingencies were drilled to muscle memory. So when things went sideways, and they always did, there was no panic. There was only execution. Jocko often says stress is a signal that you're unprepared. You forgot something. You didn't think it through. You left a variable open. And when you remove those gaps in advance, pressure feels different. It doesn't go away, but it doesn't control you. The more you prepare, the less you panic. That's not a motivational quote. It's a field manual, and it applies whether you're clearing buildings or starting your day at 5 a.m. Chapter 11. Dress the part. People say don't judge a book by its cover, but everyone does, not because they're shallow, because they're wired for efficiency. Your appearance tells the world what to expect, and more importantly, it tells you what to expect of yourself. You don't have to wear a 3-piece suit or some cartoon version of masculinity, but you should look like you take yourself seriously. Uniforms exist for a reason. Military, law enforcement, firefighters, tradesmen, athletes. Every disciplined profession has a uniform. It's not about fashion, it's about identity. When you put on a uniform, you step into a role. You show up sharper, move with more purpose, hold yourself to a standard. That doesn't disappear just because you're not in a formal unit. What you wear can still anchor your behavior. The mirror is a weapon. When you look sharp, clean, deliberate, people treat you differently. That's true. But the bigger shift is internal. When you dress like someone who's on point, you become someone who's on point. The body follows the image. You walk taller, you make fewer excuses. You're less likely to waste time because your outfit already says you've got somewhere to be. This isn't about vanity. It's about signaling, first to yourself, then to the room. Don't just dress to impress. Dress to align. This doesn't mean putting on a costume. It means dressing in a way that aligns with your values, your direction, and your level of seriousness. You want to run a business? You want to lead men? You want to be taken seriously? Then stop dressing like you're waiting for someone to tell you what to do. Dress like you own the outcome. Hugo Boss, The Power of Uniform. Before it became a global fashion brand, Hugo Boss was a small tailor shop in Germany, founded in the 1920s. Struggling through economic collapse and political chaos, Hugo Boss, the man, aligned his company with the rising Nazi regime in the 1930s and began manufacturing uniforms. Not just any uniforms, the black SS tunic, the brown SA shirts, the Hitler Youth outfits, sharp lines, symmetry, authority. The cuts were militaristic, cold, intimidating, and they worked. The designs weren't just fabric, they were strategy. Those uniforms became part of the psychological machinery of the Third Reich. They conveyed discipline, fear, unity, and control before a single word was spoken. The message was, "We are not like you. We are above you. Whether you agree with the regime is irrelevant." The lesson is about presentation as power. Years later, the company apologized and rebranded. But the early success of Hugo Boss was a raw example of what a uniform can do. Shape perception, create hierarchy, establish dominance. You don't need a uniform to weaponize appearance, but you need to understand the principle. Clothing is communication. People decide how seriously to take you, how far to challenge you, how much to trust you, based on split-second impressions. And if your presence says, "I'm squared away," the world tends to move differently around you. Chapter 12. Build the machine. Discipline isn't just about willpower, it's about removing friction. If you have a goal, gain muscle, write a book, start a business, then you don't just need motivation. You need a system that makes execution automatic. Want to gain 20 pounds of muscle? That's not just a gym thing, that's a logistics thing. It means calories, a lot of them, and eating when you're not hungry. So, what do? You stop pretending you'll figure it out on the fly. You buy a bullet blender and 10 blender cups so you can hammer out 1,000 calories in 3 minutes without thinking. You load your freezer with chicken tenders and sweet potato fries and toss them in an air fryer for a real meal in 12 minutes. You create a calorie-dense system, fast, mindless, consistent. That's a machine, and it builds size with or without perfect motivation. Every area of life can be approached the same way. Want to get lean? Pre-cook your meals in batches. Want to wake up early? Set your coffee and clothes out the night before. Want to write? Block the time, kill distractions, and sit down whether you're inspired or not. Systems are how you scale consistency. Discipline still matters, but the more you automate, the fewer decisions you waste energy on. That's what high-level people understand. They don't just work harder, they make their lives easier to execute. James Clear and the Power of Tiny Systems. Before he became a best-selling author, James Clear was just a regular guy trying to rebuild himself after a catastrophic baseball injury. A fractured skull, months of recovery, the kind of setback that derails most people permanently. He didn't come back by setting massive goals. He came back by building tiny systems. He started with small habits, going to the gym every Monday, even if he only did one set. Writing a few sentences each day, even if they were trash. He built these habits into his life like gears in a machine. Small, boring, but frictionless. Eventually, those systems became unbreakable routines. The routines became identity. He didn't write a book by setting a word count. He wrote it by showing up every day, same chair, same time, no debate. Clear's entire philosophy was forged from this process, that you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. The takeaway: if your goal requires constant motivation, your structure is weak. Build a system that makes success hard to miss, even on your worst days. Final thoughts. Mental resilience isn't a trait you're born with. It's a skill you build through repetition, discomfort, and deliberate framing. It starts in the mind, planting sharp, useful thoughts in the subconscious, controlling the breath under stress, and visualizing not just who you want to be, but what it costs to become him. It's choosing to lean into controlled suffering, cold, distance, silence, not for vanity, but because discomfort trains clarity. It's small habits done with consistency. The bed made, the boots placed, the plan laid out the night before. It's action taken before doubt gets a foothold. The outside world won't hand you peace. It will test you, project its weakness onto you, try to pull you into its dragnet of mediocrity. But with a disciplined mind, you frame pain as fuel. You dress like someone with standards. You move before hesitation speaks. You prepare like someone whose life depends on it, because in many ways it does. Resilience is built in quiet hours and proven in loud ones. And those who are carved from stone don't flinch when the hammer swings. They harden. If this book hit something in you, if it lit a fuse, you already know this is just the start. Reading won't carve you into anything, but action will. If you're serious about building that discipline, about becoming the kind of man this world no longer expects you to be, then it's time to train for real. My community and coaching program isn't for everyone. It's not a course. It's a system of accountability, pressure, and clarity designed to make sure you follow through. If you're ready to apply this for real, not just admire it, you'll find out quickly if you belong. You know what to do next. Follow the author at Justin R. Zelmer on Instagram, or follow the link provided and join his private community and start changing your life today. You have more to offer the world, and I believe in you.